Welcome back to another episode of In Swine Versation. Coming full circle with the family farm, 150 years in pig production with Dr. Peter Schneider from Schneider Pork Farms. Welcome, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah, I know I've followed you on Twitter for a while, so this is a great interview we've been waiting to have. What's your story? You're in Iowa and 150 years of farming, is that right?
Yeah, so the farm has been in our family for 150 years now. So I feel like that's quite a feat given, the state of the industry today to some extent, and again, an operational farm yet. I think it's pretty cool, and we're kind of proud of that. So the farm, goes back a long time, and really up into the point where my dad came back to the farm. It was kind of a diversified livestock and a row crop operation from a standpoint of we had multiple species. So grandpa had dairy cows and pigs and chickens and ducks and all that good stuff, along with some corn and soybeans and oats and you name it, so fairly traditional model for back then. And yeah, when my dad graduated high school, he wanted to be part of the farm. And really at that point in time, I think he had no interest in milking dairy cows and taking care of ducks. And so those kind of went down the road, and dad started focusing more on just the hogs and then the row crop production. In addition to that, he also worked off the farm full time as a welder, and did that for a number of years at different organizations in town, including John Deere. And so that was some way that he could stay involved with the farm, but also bring a skill back and learn that trade, and be able to provide that as service to the farm, which has been pretty beneficial for us. So we then, I guess, like in 1997, we expanded. Dad expanded the farm, so we built a brand new nursery, and up until that point, it was kind of the model of everything was on one site. We had a farrowing house. Pigs got weaned to the hot nursery, then moved to the cold nursery, then to the grower and the finisher, and then finally off the farm. But everything was really on one site, and so at that point in time, I think dad was kind of hearing about the disease and things that were going around, and saying, hey, this multiple site model probably makes some sense. And so we got rid of the nurseries there on site and built a brand new nursery down the road a ways, and then at that point in time expanded the sow herd from 300 sows to 700 sows. And then our next expansion was in 2014. Our facilities were getting a little bit dated at the time. We needed to make some decisions about what to do. And so we built a brand new gestation barn and added some farrowing, and expanded the herd to 1,200 sows. We were always been group housing. We used to have the old drop box feeders from the ceiling and pens of 20 to 30 sows. And I think with the technology, and obviously with electronic sow feeding, we were kind of starting to see that come out at that point in time. And that looked like it was an option that was a really good way to manage sow condition and help ourselves out a bit on that end. So we went with the NEAT electronic sow feeding stations in our barn, and I think that's been a really good move for us in terms of being able to manage our herd a little bit better. So yeah, that's kind of the evolution over time, I guess. And then obviously my involvement after I graduated from school, have been involved with the farm, both on the grain and the livestock side, and staying pretty busy with that. In addition to working as a veterinarian as well.
So your pigs are sold to Tyson in Waterloo, Iowa, and JBS in Marshalltown, Iowa.
Yeah, yep, correct. We've had kind of a long-term relationship with both, and kind of nice to have that diversity there in terms of folks to sell to. As we went through the COVID year, and it was kind of hard to get loads sometimes, and having that relationship multiple places, I think kind of was a beneficial deal, and we've been good partners to work with on our end.
So you're a producer and a vet. So what made you want to be a veterinarian, and what do you see as trends in the industry?
Yeah, so I think, and as a kid, I remember having the veterinarian come out, and thought that was always really neat to spend some time with the vet and walk through the farm. And we had the pseudorabies elimination there during I think it was the 90s, and so we had to do the bleeds on that, and I helped out with those things, and again, it was just always kind of enamored with the veterinarian when they were out, and thought it was pretty neat. So kind of had the interest from that point, and again thinking about what I could bring back to the farm. So dad had brought back the skills in welding and the metal fabrication, through his time working in town on those jobs. And he's done excellent work on the farm and helping us out with again fixing things and making whether it be a hog cart or reconstructing crates and gates and whatnot else. So that's been good. And I think again, what can I bring back to the farm to help make us competitive and help make us better? And the veterinary piece really was something I thought that I could do and have the opportunity to get to vet school and has been good for us. So from a standpoint of trends in the industry, again, the biggest thing I go back to with my veterinary career is disease, and it doesn't seem like that thing is slowing down a heck of a lot for us, and seems to be more challenges every day with the diseases we have. The PRRS seem to be getting a little bit more virulent at times, and even the influenza seems to be a little tougher on some groups, and we're always talking more about E. coli as well as other bugs, and so certainly those are the pieces that kind of keep me up at night probably a little bit more. And obviously, with foreign animal diseases, we're talking about pretty aggressively now too. So that's certainly a trend and a hot topic that we have in the industry. And we also always talk about labor, and that's definitely a trend that seems like it's always harder and harder to get local people to want to come and be part of the pig production. That's obviously it's tough work and whatnot, and so we're always talking about how we get labor, how we retain labor, and what we do to make sure that we have well qualified and trained people to work in our industry. Right, we always want to make sure we're taking the best care of the animals we can, and that's a piece that we focus on a lot. Is making sure we get everybody trained and keep them around.
Because you think there's more to lose if we don't keep people trained and happy in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. As we go through and we lose individuals that we've spent time to get trained and to get into positions, and they're doing an excellent job. If there's a job in town that's competing in salary or in with wages, and a few dollars more, well, you can't necessarily fault somebody for going and taking that job. So we've always got to work to do our best in terms of keeping our industry competitive from a compensation standpoint. So hey, it may not be that we can always hit the dollar figure that they could do from going to work at a factory in town or something, but I think we can provide a little bit more job satisfaction, with just the right people that really care about taking care of the animals, and we can always again stress that point, and then it's the personal touch about, hey, doing a great job and making sure that that they feel like they're always learning something. I think people really like to learn, as a rule. And again, if we continue to bring information and knowledge and continue to have those conversations about, these different points, I think people really appreciate that and find satisfaction in that within our industry. So, stressing those points and seeing those people as important integral pieces of what we do is pretty critical.
So with consolidation and vertical integration, people think the industry is going to continue down the trajectory to shrink. Do you think this is going to keep happening?
Well, I wish my crystal ball was better. I can consult it every day, and it just kind of gives me question marks most of the time. But certainly that's been the trend, and for a number of different reasons, right? I think from my standpoint as a veterinarian, diseases are a tough deal, and we have small independent farmers, family farmers that say we only have one sow farm. If we have a disease break, well, that's 100% of our production that's affected on a yearly basis. Versus you get to a company that maybe has 4, 5, 6 sow farms or more, and if they have a disease break at one, well, that's a much smaller portion of their overall output that's affected. So again, economically, it's probably a little bit easier to withstand those things than it is for a smaller producer. And again, the risk management piece of it is never getting easier either. And so as independent farmers, we wear a lot of different hats, right? So we're in the barns on a daily basis. We're consulting with our nutritionists and working on that, and our veterinarians and working on that. We're also their HR department for our farms, and payroll and you name it. So there's a lot of different things to do, and it's a little bit harder balance all that. So again, the risk management becomes extremely critical, and maybe a little bit harder for us to do at times. But I do think that the independent producers have an advantage in a lot of things, and if we look at it from biosecurity aspect of it. I always say, how can we limit our exposure to the outside world, right? What can we do to be as self-sufficient as possible? And I think, as independent producers, we've got the abilities to say, okay, we're going to have a truck and trailer. We're going to move our own hogs and haul our own hogs, and we have less people coming into our farms, and we have maybe less reliance on outside services. Certainly, again, if we do our own on-farm feed mixing and delivery, we can really control those outside exposures, and I think that gives us an advantage from a biosecurity aspect to make it better for us and keep our pigs healthier and be competitive that way. But also, I think we also provide or have the opportunity to be more flexible than maybe some larger production systems that say, this is something that's going to take a little bit more, critical management, and maybe we don't quite have the people of it. But when you're starting to talk about independent producers and family farmers, our livelihoods depend on those farms being competitive, and so every day we're there, we're thinking about all the critical aspects and making sure we're addressing those, and very mindful of the fact that if our pigs get sick or something goes wrong, that's directly affecting our ability to feed our families and whatnot. So I think again we've got the ability to be flexible and on that end, and maybe meet some of those markets that others don't want to go to. So there's definitely opportunities.
Is the new version of family farming going to be direct to consumer?
I think that the direct to consumer piece is pretty intriguing. And I think it kind of depends on the scale of the farm too, right? So, if we're going to market 30,000 pigs a year, it's going to be really hard to probably find enough people to do direct to consumer for all those head. But I think the thing that's pretty interesting on that is it gives us a really direct route of communication and transparency to the people that are eating our pork. And so, from a standpoint of good for the industry, I think there's a lot there, and I think that the individual farmers, the small independent producers, I think they've got a lot of ability to make a few extra bucks through that direct to consumer marketing. But again, it takes some work too, right? And we've got all those other hats to wear, and sometimes that piece is kind of hard. But hey, those that want to do it, and they're doing a good job, and I think they found it pretty beneficial for them.
So what about social media and Twitter? I think Twitter's been a good opportunity to connect farmers together, and then with consumers, you have an active Twitter feed. I know you have a community in the pork industry you talk to varying opinions. How's this platform helped you, if at all, in the pig business?
Well, as you said there, it's for me, it's been beneficial to be able to talk with producers really around the world, and have got to see their experiences and the challenges and the joys of production that they get to experience. It's kind of neat to pick their brains on hey, how are you managing this problem, right? For instance, we group housing and open pen gestation is probably a little bit newer to us in the States to some extent, and even open pen farrowing. And there's others in the world that have done that for a longer time. So it's kind of fun to say, hey, I've got this concern or this issue that I'm working on, and Twitter's kind of given us that ability to talk with others that we probably would never have had the opportunity to talk with in the past. And so yeah, there's a ton of good things about that for our industry, and when we can learn. There's really nothing more fun than getting to a pig conversation on Twitter, and you got 5 or 6 people kind of giving input and talking about certain things. So I really do enjoy that.
So you use it for learning, education, and entertainment?
Yeah, how those things kind of blend together a little bit. For me, and I don't do a very good job of separating my personal life and my work life a lot of times, and my personal life really revolves around pigs as much as anything too. So, it's really kind of encompassed a lot of those things for me, and I would say that I've made friends in the pork industry through Twitter. So again, there's a lot of benefits on that end that I've really enjoyed and have given me entertainment as well as education for sure.
So Twitter to baseball. I know you're a baseball fan.
Yeah.
I saw you have a baseball card when you're with the Waterloo Bucks. What's the story, Peter?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough, I guess, to play baseball in college, and the Waterloo Bucks team is a local team that is a summer college team, and so a bunch of guys from colleges all across the country go play, for the team in the summertime, and so I had the opportunity to do that, and it's they printed up these cards. It was kind of cool, and at the time it was kind of a I think I was imitating Bo Jackson or one of the other professional baseball players in my pose there, but it was really kind of just more of a fun deal. But anyways, no, it was a good opportunity, a good time, and yeah, those days were good.
So you didn't crack the bat.
Yeah, no, I think I tried that a few times with a bat that I had already broke, on a hitting the pitch, and I think it hurt me more than the bat. So I did not try that. No.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the photo and I'm like, yeah, that is Bo Jackson, like from 1990, I think, when he was
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
Royals, Kansas City. Now, what about Jersey Red? So back to the pigs. What's your opinion on the Duroc or the better tasting pork the Genesis is promoting about a better tasting product?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of firsthand experience with the Jersey Red product. I do have one client that uses it in the veterinary world, and honestly, I think what they're trying to do to create a better tasting product, a better eating experience, is exactly what we need to do as an industry. I think we need to keep the consumer, happy with the product and the eating experience, and I really applaud Genesis for going that direction in terms of saying, hey, listen, this is going to meet that market need, and this is going to keep consumers interested in what we have to do. And I really, again, continue to hope that our genetic companies continue to work on that too, right? We focus so much on average daily gains and feed conversions and all the other metrics that are part of the profitability of our industry, but again, if pork is looked at as just well, this is a protein option, that's okay. But I think we really want pork to be looked at as, hey, this is a great eating experience, right? I want to keep coming back to this and buying this product, and so whatever we can do to keep consumers excited about pork, I think is what we need to keep doing, and that's improving the quality of the meat, and so like I said, again, good for Genesis to be looking at that, and I hope this trend continues in our industry.
What about thoughts on disease control or biosecurity?
Yeah, it's extremely critical, and probably spend as much of my time thinking about that and working on that in both my own farm and with my clients as anything. It's hard and it's tough, and biosecurity is not an easy thing. I don't think we need to turn it into something that seems like it's the Mount Everest of our challenges. But we certainly need to be mindful and thinking about how can we do this so we can get ourselves to be as good as possible. And it may not be perfect, right? But we don't want to let the pursuit of perfect be the enemy of getting to be good. And so, I think we've gotten a long way since PED, and as we continue to talk about African swine fever and other foreign animal diseases, we're talking more about how do we get trucks washed, how do we manage our feed deliveries and biosecurity on those ends. And for me, it's the pigs too, right? I think we need to think about how we enter our gilts into our farms and what we do from a disease and disease monitoring standpoint. I work with the Iowa State, University Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, and they've made it so easy to get diagnostics submitted anymore, right? They've got labels we can print off for shipping with a good price on the shipping of those things overnight, and submissions are easy now. We can do all those online. there's just so many reasons why there's no excuses to get our diagnostics submitted and do a better job of that end. So, certainly it's a piece that every farm needs to focus on, and I certainly focus on quite a bit.
You ready for a few rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's hit it.
Thoughts on open pen gestation?
Continuing to grow within the industry.
Cutting edge technology like ESF, what's most useful?
Yeah, I think we've just started hitting the tip of the iceberg on those things. I think the precision farming that's happening in row crops with GPS and whatnot, we're really just starting to try to implement that in the swine side, and from a feeding standpoint, from a data collection standpoint, and from a farm management standpoint, there's some really cool technology out there, and I'm not even probably aware of it all. But again, it's going to make our lives a lot easier as we continue to adapt these pieces.
Favorite baseball team?
The Cleveland Guardians.
Has that been for a long time?
Yeah, everybody was a Braves fan back in their mid '90s when they played the Braves in the World Series. And being a contrarian, I guess I started rooting for them, and they had a pretty good run of success. So I stick with them.
1995, I think they lost 1-0 in Game 7 against
Yeah.
Atlanta. Yeah. What about humane and safe handling?
Well, it's the right thing to do, and we have to continue to be good at it and train it. And we've got to make sure that we're always doing the right thing for the pigs.
Have you been to the Field of Dreams site in Iowa?
Yeah, yeah, it's been a few years. I haven't. I think it was actually purchased by somebody or another outfit here a few years ago, and they redid a lot of stuff. And but been there before. It's been a couple years. I'll take the kids here at some point in time, and I think that game they've been playing there with the major leagues, once a summer or whatever, has been a really neat deal. I know I watched the first one. I missed last year's, but I hope they continue doing that. It's kind of a cool story.
Who's your role model and why?
Well, that's it's my father is my role model, and I think it's probably again most young guys is role model, I suppose. Growing up is always look up to your dad and what they're doing and whatnot. But the biggest thing for my father is that he's been an extremely hard worker, and he's always put the family first, and wanting to create opportunities for me and being involved with the farm. And so I really hope that I can replicate that and do the same thing for my kids, and continue to make our farm a viable opportunity for them long term.
We got one more question, Peter. If
Okay.
you are in charge of our industry moving forward as a whole, what are 2 steps you would implement to drive success?
Well, going back to the conversation about the Jersey Red and the eating experience, I think that we need to continue to make consumers see pork as a high quality product, in a high quality eating experience, and I think we need to continue to show them that, hey, pork is a pretty versatile meat, and it can stand alone on its own, and with different cooking options, it can also be part of a meal as kind of an accent to something else. But I don't think we do a good enough job sometimes really promoting the growth of pork. Within the industry, especially or within the states, and domestically, we kind of see that pork consumption has plateaued, and I think it's just because folks really don't necessarily know what to do with it. So I know I've cooked a bunch of food, some pork for people, and they're like, "Wow, we didn't realize pork could be this good." And I by no means am a great chef, but I think it's something that we really want to continue to push. So that's something I do is try to again increase the awareness of pork as a great quality product within the industry, or within the consumer base that or the consumers that are going to eat pork. And the other thing would continue to work on how we continue to grow the labor force or continue to contain or keep labor within the industry. And so really wanting to push again making sure we're staying competitive with wages and competitive options, and just again the quality of life that you can get from working with pigs and the satisfaction of it. I think we need to continue that.
Really loved your insight, Peter. Thanks for joining us on In Swine Versation.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.